This podcast is part of the Deluxe Edition Network. To find other great shows on the network, head over to deluxeeditionnetwork.com. That's deluxeeditionnetwork.com.
Kindness. We see it all around us. We see it when someone pays for someone else's coffee or holds the door open for another person. We see it in the smallest of gestures, like a smile or a kind word. But it's different when we turn on the news or social media. Oftentimes, what we hear about, what outlets are pushing, is the opposite of kind. Welcome to the Kindness Matters podcast. Our goal is to give you a place to relax, to revel in stories of people who have received or given kindness, a place to inspire and motivate each and every one of us to practice kindness every day. Hello, everybody, and welcome. You are listening to the Kindness Matters podcast. I am your host, Mike Rathbun. And as you may have noticed, this podcast is a member of the Deluxe Edition Network, and so I need to tell you about their podcast of the month. It is called Horsin' Around, where host Joel Sharp and producer Jared Picone lead the boys from Red Horse Hair Studio through their nonsensical banter from the cutting room floor and deliver it in this hilarious, no-holds-barred podcast. From conspiracies and monsters to ghosts and surreal true life, your squishy brain will be filled with so much of the awesome. Also, make sure to check out the show notes, where you'll find links and discount codes for two companies I've partnered with, Sunday Scaries, a company that makes broad-spectrum CBD gummies, and Coffee Bros, that make an amazing blend of coffees. I use both of these products, and they are nothing short of amazing. And now, let's get into the show. Hello and welcome to the show, everybody. Gosh, I am so psyched for you to meet my guest today. This guest of mine today has, God's honest truth, been through it. I mean, she's been through hell, and she's come out the other side, and in spectacular fashion, not fortune. Let's go fashion. She is a coach. Is it a coach?
Coach, speaker,
author. In her coaching, she specializes and is certified in cognitive behavioral therapy. And she has a new book just coming out. Coming out.
Yeah.
The Road to Now, From Tragedy to Triumph. Look for it wherever you get all your finest books. Please welcome to the show my guest, Jessica Summers. Thanks for coming on today, Jessica. So excited.
Thank you so much. I'm excited too. Thanks for having me.
And I mean, we've talked. God, that conversation could have gone on forever as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
But when we talked, I found out some things about you, and I don't think I was burying the lead there with what you have been through in your life. And maybe you don't even want to talk about that. I don't know. But you really have been through a lot. At one point, you were homeless.
Yeah.
Now, is that what's kind of influenced your learning and your practicing?
Well, I think all of it, getting myself out of the situation that I was in, you make a decision, right? If I'm going to get myself out of this, I guess I'm going to learn and grow and understand how I got myself here and understand how to get myself out. I mean, there's so much involved in it once you do make that decision, right?
Right. For sure. Yeah, you either sink lower, although I'm not sure you could go much lower than you were at.
Yeah.
Or you climb out. And you climbed out.
And I think that's such a big thing too, when we say like hitting our bottom, it's like, goodness gracious, I hit like the bottomless bottom.
Right. Yeah,
you
we
know,
had a kid that had an addiction problem, and we always kept saying, "Oh, surely this must be his rock bottom," because you try to help him, but you can't. Nobody can help an addict; they have to do it themselves. And every time we'd say, "This this has got to be the bottom," and he said, for somehow he kept digging lower,
yeah.
and until he finally did hit his rock bottom. And he's such an amazing kid today. I say kid; he's 30.
That's a kid.
He'll always be my kid.
Right.
But yeah,
But
I know you talk about that, and it's so what's the word? I'm struggling for words, which is a bad trait to have in a podcast host. That's not a good trait.
well, if you'd like to talk about that part about because I recognize that now about, you'd think like, okay, here we go, that's enough, right? Oh wait, you're going to go further down. Okay, no, that's it, right? And so
Right.
it's kind of mind-boggling, isn't it?
It
That
is.
you can, but I think that's what people need to hear and understand and recognize, is that there's a difference between making bad choices or making choices at all, right? If I feel like doing
Right.
drugs, I'll do drugs or whatever you want to do. And then there is the necessity. And what I think the biggest problem is a lot of us, I mean, for myself, I thought that it was a me problem. So I kept trying to fix it myself, and I crashed and burned every single time because I didn't know what kind of help I needed to ask for anymore,
Right.
you know?
Had you tried other kinds of help before, and just it didn't work, or
Well, I think for my situation was, because it started off, I mean, if we go back for a second, it started with the pregnancy, the complications, and then the postpartum depression. And all this medication was like one medication after another, and one infection, and one, I had hiatal hernia and ruptured
oh,
ovarian cyst. And every time I went back, I would get more antibiotics and more pain pills. And so that's kind of where it started. And so I was so far in it without even recognizing it, the monster, until
right?
I was really in there. And
Yeah.
what I know is you got a problem, fix it. And I didn't know how to fix it.
That in and of itself is a problem, right?
Yeah.
And it's so easy because it seems like the medical whatever these days they just throw pills at anything you've got. And it's no wonder that we have a problem in this country, right?
Right. And so I mean, this was early 2000s. I mean, when I hit the bottom was 2013. But I'm telling you that nobody said one word to me about addiction. I'm the one who said, I feel like I'm taking too much medication. Like every time I don't need it, then I would kind of, like kind of an as is, the
Yeah.
pain would come back so intense, and I'd take a bunch of medication, but I couldn't catch up to it. And it was a weird cycle that way. And if you don't know anything about it, you're doing what comes normal,
Right.
you know, whatever
Yeah.
normal is.
Whatever normal is. Yeah, normal should always be in quotation marks. Because there is no one thing is normal for anybody, for any different person.
No.
Um so when you finally woke up and said, "This is not where I want to be. I have to be somewhere else." How did that process play out?
Well, I kept trying to do outpatient programs, but again, I was in a dilemma of if I went to my doctor, because I still did really have physical ails. And
Right.
so I'd try to go to the doctor. I'd get the medication. Nobody would hear, like, I can't take that. It's making things worse. And then let's try, so I wasn't getting the help there. So how do I actually stop doing the drugs because I really do need them? But you look okay on the outside. What are you complaining about? So I didn't know where to go or what to do anymore. And so it leads me to one day I am bawling my eyes out, and I'm at because I don't know if I mentioned it, that the doctor prescribed drugs goes to street drugs. I'd given up. But at the same time, that got me to this place where I just said, God, why would you want me to suffer so bad? And that was the change, because I did all of the drugs right then and there without even knowing that I did it.
Oh my gosh.
I wasn't paying attention. And I got up and I walked out. It should have killed me.
Yeah.
And I got up and I knew, because I'm not a religious person, but I always have had God in my life.
Sure.
So at that time, I was ashamed, embarrassed, hiding, especially from God. Here I am. I'm like, I'm the worst of the worst. Look, I don't even know how I got here. I'm right. I mean,
right. Yeah.
And that's another thing, when you're in that deep, like, there's so much negative self-talk going on.
That self-talk is the worst, isn't it?
I mean, it was like spiritual warfare.
Oh, I like that. Yeah.
It was almost too much. I mean, it was too much because I wasn't even paying attention to the part that I almost killed myself when I was actually begging for help. But that was that's what needed to happen for me to start seeking alternatives. And the alternative was, I'm going to go home and I'm going to tell my husband everything. I'm going to say whatever I need to say to get the help that I need.
Oh, wow.
Which made it 10 times worse.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah. That was, but it also showed me that I wasn't making things up in my head, meaning I did not have a support system. I don't really.
You always felt like you didn't have a support system, but this just kind of proved it.
Yeah, because
Okay.
I ended up in a mental institution and I got separation papers 3 days out. And I had nothing. I barely had my mind. I didn't even.
Right.
So then I went on that journey.
And then when you were released, I would imagine you didn't have any place to go.
Yeah, that's how I ended up homeless.
My God. Okay, so let's talk about something happier.
Yeah.
How did you dig yourself out? How did you get to that point? I mean, this was part of it. We were talking about where you were. How did you get out of that?
So, and this is such a big deal too, is I kept trying to do these outpatient programs, and everything was, so specific to, okay, we're here, we're working on this, but I still had my mental health issues. I still had my physical ails. So no matter where I went, I would always bomb. I would crash because I needed everything.
Right.
So it was about 3 years after I went to that first
meeting?
Psychiatric hospital. Whew.
Okay.
After that, I had tried to do some outpatient stuff. I had went to the hospital a couple of times, so it was just an ongoing cycle. I think this was divine intervention once again, because I had I was actually sleeping in people's garages, sleeping in my car, or couch surfing. I had actually one place and I was, again, the only people that would let me stay at their homes were people that were not too much better off than I was. So it's not really a healthy or stable environment for me. God bless them and thank you for the couch, but right. So I found a piece of paper with a name and a telephone number that my mother had given me.
Hey guys, sorry for the interruption. We will be right back with more of my conversation with Jessica right after this quick word from another Deluxe Edition Network podcast.
This is Take on the World with Johnny and Mike. And, people always ask me, hey, you got a podcast? What's it about?
I don't know. You ever want to cut your fingers off or learn about a sharp knife?
We could tell you that.
How about murder mysteries or hauntings or any kind of fringe subject?
Anything you could think of. We take on everything because we take on the world.
Now you go take on the world.
And mind you, she is, my mother lives in Germany. She's German. So it wasn't like we saw each other all the time. Excuse me.
Right.
But last time she was there, she had found a dual diagnosis place. And that's the number that I had. And I called him or called the number. And this guy on the line, I mean, he knew his stuff. He knew the addict behavior I got to have everything figured out. I need to do this, because you're so wrapped up in that. I got to figure this out. Shame, guilt, the stigma, right? Mm-hmm. If it's not from the, your environment, it's you and how you've been brought up and what you think, what the world thinks about this. So you're just in that kind of loop of talking yourself out of over and over without even you can't. When you're in that, you're just not making logical choices or decisions, right? If you could, you would.
Right, yeah.
So, and this is where this guy is just, he knew what to say. And the next thing I know, I had told him, because I didn't want to ask for help anymore. I was just so ashamed of myself. And I said, I'm not asking anybody for any money. I said, the only thing I can think of is my stepbrother flies a lot. Maybe you can ask him if he has some miles. And, it was like whip, 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 like a day or two later, and my stepbrother is picking me up and taking me to the airport, and I go to a dual diagnosis. So I'm, under a roof where I am, it's like a 24/7.
Sure.
It's saved my life.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
But, you put in the work. This was not, and even after that, you put in the work to realize just how special you were. And in turn, it's been 13 years since, or 11 years?
Since my first break, or since...
You said 2013?
13 is when I had that break, yeah.
So you've spent really the last 11 years not only digging yourself out of that hole, but then becoming so much more and helping other people realize that for themselves as well.
Right, because and this is such a big learning lesson that I was for myself, but that I share with others too, because we get blocked. First of all, there's a lot of us that do the work by just stopping the behavior, just stopping drinking, just stopping right. That doesn't mean you've healed from the reasons of why you got yourself there in the first place.
Right.
So there's that. So I learned that. And then I also, in the beginning, I kept failing because I kept doing what everybody was telling me what was wrong with me and what I needed to do.
Ah.
So I would hit the wall over and over and over because I still wasn't going down to the root cause. And right, because once I started doing that, I understood like, oh, I never really loved myself. Well, why is that? Oh, I have a lot of unhealed childhood trauma.
Why
and
is
the
that? There's a lot of unpacking going on there.
and there is, and this is what I also know now is when we start, something happens to us in life, and we start pushing or like, oh, that's kind of normal. We're just going to push that down and we're going to get through it. Getting through it is just pushing more crap down. That's why just stopping drinking, just stop doing drugs or whatever doesn't do anything but push it down until a later time.
Yeah.
You're going to eventually, and I think that's probably why I hit the bottomless bottom the way I did is I had done some work for obvious things, but I hadn't really gotten down into the layers of what I think we all need to do is we're human beings having this experience and we don't even know what's coming at us sometimes.
Right.
Right.
Do you ever have clients who like, and I think maybe this would be like me if I was to do something like that. I don't want to know what's in there. I don't know. I don't want to know what's causing that. Is the fear of that? That's a real fear, right?
That is.
I don't want to know why I am how I am.
And you know what? You just said the biggest thing. That is one of the, I would say 99% of us. That is exactly how we feel and why we get stuck in our own way because of that fear. And that fear is the unknown because of all of this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it isn't anywhere close to what we think it is.
Oh boy.
Meaning in a positive.
Oh,
we start, because us humans, we want to go to the negative, right? And we want to think of the worst case scenarios and, we shift there all the time. But once we start unfolding and peeling back the layers, there is more, oh man, genius, a light, everything positive is under there as well. And that will overpower that initial fear. I guarantee it.
Wow. So I like on your website you said, what she's found is that we are all much more capable than we've been led to believe. We all have our individual superpowers when you know where to look. How is it that you came to develop that skill? Finding out where to look.
Right.
A lot of it has to do with your own experience.
Right. And that's why I say this with such excitement about that fear, because that is exactly what got me to the place of crashing and because I was afraid. Yeah. I was afraid to acknowledge what I didn't want to know because I thought it was going to reveal the real me.
And that's, you weren't going to like the real you. You'd already decided that, right?
Right. I didn't want any of that, or I didn't want to know, I had some sexual abuse in my younger years, and you make stories up around that. And, if I dig into that, I'll really know more about that. You catastrophize everything that has ever happened in your life, and you make it, that's fear. I'm not going there, no matter what it is. I'm fine.
Is that just a normal reaction? It's like to a traumatic event is to sanitize it or pasteurize it, as you said, so we don't have to deal with it?
Right. It's the fear of the unknown.
Yeah.
The fear of the unknown is such a huge block because of another thing is we are so caught up in what we think we know that we don't allow for any more, because it's not taking anything away. I think a lot of people think that I know what I know, and they intellectualize it, right? And that gets us stuck.
It
We
does.
get in our way.
I know there's a monster under my bed, but if I don't look, I won't see it and I won't have to deal with it.
Right. That's it. And
Or a
it's,
monster deep in my soul, whatever the case may be.
this just came to me. I just thought about this. I mean, imagine pretty much all of us, right? From the get-go, as children, we have experiences come at us without explanation. What story do we create from the very beginning? And then we have some trauma, and then this happens, and then there's a divorce, and then there's, right? So imagine what we've created that isn't even real.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I have all kinds of stories of, like when I was growing up, but I cannot look back on my life and say I had a bad childhood. Is that because I'm hiding something from myself? Or did I really not have a bad childhood?
That's interesting in itself too, because again, we're taught, and we learn what a normal, average, what this is supposed to look like.
Right.
So if it looks like that, even though it's not normal and average, because what we base all of that on, think about that. It's like there are so many things that are not healthy, but we made it okay and made it healthy and average and normal because we all sat in a room together and said, okay, let's all agree on this. Okay. It's the lesser of the evil. Let's go with that one.
Yeah, for sure. I think what you do is just, it's so cool, because I like the thought of you unlocking people's superpowers for them. That's got to be fulfilling.
I don't even have really the words for it, because I went through it myself. And because I'm super, I don't see it as a negative anymore, but I am super sensitive. I see things in people that they don't necessarily see in themselves. And then when I see them stuck behind that when they don't need to be, and then get to pull that out.
Wow. Yeah.
I wish that for everyone, because we hold ourselves down in so many areas that we don't need to.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I know. Yeah. It's it's amazing. So let's tie this into kindness, because that's what this show is about.
Yes.
You said something the other day about accountability to ourselves, and it stuck with me. And I'm not even sure entirely of the context what we're talking about it with. But that phrase, accountability to ourselves, in regards to kindness. How? I'm struggling. I'm flailing.
So when I think,
Go ahead.
in that context, then, how I'm kind of putting that together is, so I say a lot when we take accountability for ourselves and we start doing the work, there's peace, power, and purpose in that. Meaning, when you find your purpose, and purpose doesn't mean finding the cure for cancer.
Right.
Purpose means finding out who you are. All the good, the bad, the ugly. And because there is peace and there is power in that. You don't have to point the finger. You don't have to compare yourself. There is no competition because there is only one of you.
I love that.
And isn't that a powerful thing when you can stand up authentic you and just say, yeah, I make mistakes just like anybody else, but you know what I'm good at? And when you allow yourself to be good at what you're good at, you allow others to do the same.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, that's cool. This is me. This is who I am. And you should be who you are too.
Right.
Yeah,
And
that's
that's a
awesome.
beautiful thing because we try so hard to be someone we're not. It's like, no wonder we're depressed and doing drugs and drinking too much and over this and over that and searching, searching, searching when all we have to do is be ourselves.
Right. Yeah. It would be cool if there was a pill that you could take to just automatically realize that. I'm just saying. I'm not a big advocate of pills, but because and it's a lot of work to get to where you are. And not everybody can do what you do. You said it yourself. You're just very intuitive, and not everybody is. But it's a lot of work, and I would imagine a lot of tears to get there.
Yes and yes, and I do. I get asked sometimes too with clients like, oh, how long did it take you? And that is the there's something in that with we're not supposed to be comparing ourselves with anyone. And it took me a
Right.
long time also because I crashed and burned over and over and over because I kept thinking and searching for something outside of myself. Right?
Yeah.
We could if we could focus, like I have a program for 90 days, if we could actually do that work where we're focusing on, I'm not going to worry about the outside noise and just concern myself about myself and this work. You can move mountains. The thing that stands in our way is ourselves.
Yep. Yeah. And I know people who have been in therapy for decades. And I'm like, I'm fine the way I am. Am I really? Probably not, but I'm okay with it. Because I'm too lazy. I don't want to do that work. I don't want to go through that pain, that heartbreak, and whatever else might be down there.
And I get that. I totally get that. However, that is that's learned, right?
Yeah. Oh,
Once
you
we
mean the protective?
Yeah, and once we start diving in a little bit, it's kind of like, who am I? And then who am I really? And once you start um, really loving yourself for who you are with all the whatever, that in itself is priceless.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have no idea, like, because you're not just changing yourself, you are a leader and showing and leading by example.
Yeah. Yeah.
You do it for your family. You do it for everybody, past, present, and future, just by you doing the work.
I don't want any of my ancestors to know who I am. No, that's true. I, Jessica, I could talk to you for days because this is so much fun. But I know you have a life, so I so appreciate you coming on for a half hour or so with me, and I wish you the best of luck on your new book. Um, I don't know that I have it from you yet, but I will get it and make sure that it goes into the show notes. The link for your book,
Great.
Road
Thank you.
to Now, From Tragedy to Triumph. And I
Thank
appreciate what you do and for your openness and for sharing with at least a couple people.
I appreciate your time and the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I am going to let you go. You have a fantastic week. I'll talk to you a little bit offline, but thank you again, Jessica. Jessica Summers, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
Take care and have a good rest of your week, Jessica.
Thanks, you too. Bye.
Hey guys, I really hope you enjoyed this conversation with Jessica Summers. What an amazing soul, right? I mean, I hope that all of us can take something positive away from this conversation. Like, I don't know, perseverance, strength. To rise up from where she was to where she is now is nothing short of amazing, I think. And I hope that you can take that and maybe use it in your own life as well. That will do it for this episode of the Kindness Matters podcast for this week. I appreciate you listening. Make sure you follow us on all of your social media channels. And we will be back again next week with another episode. Of course, in the meantime, be that person who roots for others, who tells a stranger that they look amazing, and encourages others to believe in themselves and their dreams. I'm Mike Rathman, your host, and you have been listening to the Kindness Matters podcast. Have a fantastic week.